Hi. Good evening, everybody. Good evening. Thanks, Mercurian Sun. Hey, the Karuna Lab. Thanks, Renee. Thanks, Dusty. Thank you, guys. In celebration of Libra, I decided to get pretty. I could probably use some more earrings and stuff, but I don't know where they are, so thank you. You guys are so sweet. It's eclipse season. And if you have not been able to tell, you're going to be able to tell after today. So we have 3 things on our agenda today. Today, I have to give you the lowdown on these eclipses. Thank you, 5 Fights. Thank you, S.A. Teray. Thank you all. I've been drinking my water and minding my business and working. So we got 3 things to cover today. I've got to give you the lowdown on these eclipses. This is eclipse season, which occurs twice a year. And I have to pick a few people to read for today because we're doing Divination for Liberation community readings. And then I have to tell you about my Eclipse special. If you are not new to this and you are in fact true to this, then you are all familiar with my Eclipse special. But I've switched it up a little bit this year, so stay tuned to find out. Marisa, my friend, thank you, boo. So let's start. Let's start by talking about these eclipses. I feel like I might want to move this down. Let's see what happens if I move that down. Okay, that's a little bit better. So let's talk about these eclipses, friends. Now, 2023 Sidereal Astrology Guide. We're going to check out these tables in the front. Hey, Earth resident, thank you for those beautiful sunflowers. Let's see here. So there's a page here in the 2023 Sidereal Astrology Guide that says Calendar Glyph Key. And it gives you the name of each of the glyphs that are in the monthly calendars, and then it explains them. So I want to take a moment and read through these 2 here, new moon eclipse and full moon eclipse, and explain what they are, because we've got a new moon eclipse coming up on October 14th, and we've got a full moon eclipse coming up on October 28th. So that's this week, guys. A sun and moon symbol shaded dark, so that's what it looks like in the guide, signifies a new moon solar eclipse. Eclipses mark major cultural shifts. The sign and house topics in our birth chart shows how these shifts impact us personally. So how do the major cultural shifts impact us personally? And how are we a part of the major cultural shifts? What role do we play? And then, of course, how does it impact us personally? New moon solar eclipses bring major removals and endings. So these can be removals that eliminate something that was obscuring your capacity to see and know clearly. This could be removals that remove people from your life. Sometimes people kick the can and die, real talk. But new moon solar eclipses are about removals and endings. I know you think they're about beginnings, but they're not. New moons are about endings. And it is only after we start building towards the full moon that we want to begin things. The new moon itself is an ending. Think of the new moon as akin to the winter solstice, right? Yes, it's a beginning, but it's also an ending. It's the sun's lowest declination in relation to the, well, it depends on where you are, but you get my point. Okay, yes, so keep that in your mind. New moon solar eclipses are about removals and endings, removing people, places, and things, jobs, thought processes, perceptions, beliefs, ideas, desires. And it can also be removing something that is obscuring your view. What happens at a solar eclipse is that the face of the sun is eclipsed or obscured because the Earth's shadow goes past the face of the sun, okay? And so what is in the way? What is obscuring your view? What is the thing that is keeping you from seeing clearly? And how can we get that hole out the way so you can see and know what's going on, okay? Then we've got a full moon eclipse, a sun and moon symbol shaded white. So that's what it looks like in the 2023 Sidereal Astrology Guide and the 2024. A sun and moon symbol shaded white signifies a full moon lunar eclipse. Full moon lunar eclipses bring major reveals, exposures, and clarity about what past experiences mean in the house they occur. So what you should take away from that is that eclipses never occur in isolation. It's never just, oh, it's fall 2023 eclipse season, so it's only about fall 2023 stuff. No, it is about stories related to the eclipse cycle or series as a whole. They are stories related to past transits and the events that those transits correlate in your house. I'm going to be giving you some dates here that will help you to contextualize what these eclipses might mean for you or might refer to in absence of me reading your actual birth chart, in absence of you needing to understand the intricacies of the astrology and technicalities. You can know what these eclipses are about for you just by making connections to past transits in the house where that eclipse falls and what things you might already be seeing arise in around that topic or those scenarios, okay? So we are at a period of transition or a moment of transition with these fall 2023 eclipses. And this transition is in part, well, in whole, the North and South node that give us a point of reference for where the eclipses are going to occur are changing signs. The North and South nodes are not actual objects in the sky. The North and South nodes, the horseshoe-shaped symbols that you might see in a birth chart, are calculated points that are showing you where the orbits of the sun and moon intersect. When we have a new moon or full moon within about 13 degrees either side of where the North Node or South Node falls at any given moment, that lunation, that new moon or full moon is going to be an eclipse. And if it's a new moon, it is always a solar eclipse. And if it's a full moon, it is always a lunar eclipse. Solar eclipses and lunar eclipses are observable phenomenon, but they generally tend to be visible only in a certain area or along a certain path at any given time. If you remember August of 2017, we had a total solar eclipse that was visible in the United States. I don't believe that we had one that was visible in the United States like that since like 92. And I remember that one. I remember being in school in the library, like trying to look out the window at school to see that eclipse. I probably was like in first grade or something like that. So this particular set of eclipses will not be visible here, but we do have eclipses in 2024 that are going to be visible here in the United States. I believe it's October 2024. I have to check to be sure. Let me check real quick so I don't give y'all the wrong information. Oh, it looks like this October 14th one is visible on the West Coast. Albuquerque, New Mexico, and Mexico. So I don't know. Oh, yeah, Oregon, It's just over the west. Nevada, Utah, and then the northeast corner of Arizona, New Mexico, oh, Texas, straight down through Central America. So yes, this October 14th eclipse will be somewhat visible here. So a solar eclipse is when the shadow of the earth is cast across the face of the sun and the light of the sun is eclipsed from view during the day. In historical times, solar eclipses were inauspicious. They were ominous. Solar eclipses were associated with the death of kings or the falling of empires. And there were also often elaborate rituals to mitigate the death of the king. So, for example, if there was an eclipse and the diviners of the time are saying, hey, this one's going to take the king out, during the time of the eclipse, they would basically put someone else in the position of king. They would coronate someone else to be king so that the actual king would not really be king at the time of the eclipse. And these are symbolic gestures that can have real material consequences. So if you are on the West Coast, going along the Southwest down through southern Texas and into Central America, you will be able to see the eclipse on October 14th. And then 2024, I think both eclipses in 2024 well, two eclipses in 2024 will be visible here. Anyways, let's talk about the astrology of these eclipses. So I'm a sidereal astrologer, in case you didn't know. So the language that you might hear other astrologers use, you'll hear here, here, here. Oh, okay. But it will be in a different context. The signs of the eclipses in sidereal are going to be different than those in tropical. And you could do with that discrepancy what you want. So, hey, Danya, long time no see. So, the first eclipse is on October 14th. Now, remember, we're in the midst of a transition, meaning the north and south node, which are tethered points calculated. They're always exactly 180 degrees apart. You can think of it more as an axis. They're about to change signs. They're about at 0 or 1 degree of sidereal Aries and Libra right now. And sometime in November, the north and south node will change signs. The nodes, move backwards through the zodiac. And so that means the nodes will be moving backward into sidereal Virgo and sidereal Pisces. And so that means we are transitioning out of eclipses in sidereal Aries and Libra, your sidereal Aries and Libra house, and into Virgo and Pisces. The last time we made this transition would have been around 2014. 2015 is the last time that we made the transition out of eclipses that were in sidereal Libra and Virgo, and eclipses that were, and into eclipses into Virgo and Pisces. So if you can think about the transitions in your own life that occurred, end of 2014, early part of 2015, fall 2014, spring 2015, what were the changes and transitions and shifts that occurred in your life during that time? And what kind of connection or correlation can you make to changes and transitions that you might be on the cusp of, or that might already be taking place. I got more clues for you, so don't worry. So on October 14th, 2023, this is the first eclipse since 2015-16 on the sidereal Virgo Pisces axis, okay? And the eclipse on the 14th is going to be a new moon solar eclipse in sidereal Virgo, okay? If you read, every month, hey, Jamie in Motion, you didn't miss much. I've just been talking about what eclipses are, what they mean, and I've been giving some dates and talking about how we're transitioning from eclipses in Sidereal Libra and Aries into eclipses in Sidereal Virgo and Pisces. And right before you came on, Jamie, I was talking about the last time we made this particular transition between signs, which would have been somewhere around the end of 2014, 2015, I believe. I'll have to double check that sometime, but thank you, Jamie. I'm trying out some new color therapy here. Hey, James. So, Virgo eclipse. Oh, this is what I was saying. Every month this year, I have been posting on Instagram a series of slides that lay out what the astrological events are in each month. And normally in the comments or the caption of that post, I lay out some themes for the month and often offer a reflection question or a question to kind of guide you into making sense of the big picture of the astrology of the month. So in October, for October 2023's post, in the caption, I said that the two themes that we're dealing with this month are power and trust. And I went on to ask you, who do you trust? Who's in your circle of trust and why? But most importantly, not just who do you trust to keep your secrets, not just who do you trust to hold space for you or to be a safe space for you. Who do you trust to tell you the truth about what's going on? Who do you trust to give you accurate information that may or may not save your life? This is not a question that we ask in that particular form often. We often we kind of have embedded in our mind these hierarchies of trust, that people who have titles, people who have certain degrees, or people who have a position politically, people who have a position economically, and people who might have a position in our community by default become people that we trust. We assume that because people have a position that they are trustworthy, and that it is their trustworthiness that has allowed them to be in a particular position of power and authority in our communities, politically, economically. So this means that professors or people who have PhDs, whether in medicine or some other field, are often seen as default people who are trustworthy. This means that people who have a lot of money, people who have been able to accumulate a lot of capital, a lot of currency or land, these are people that we trust because we assume that they must know something that we don't in order to get in the position that they are in. So we better listen to them because they have the key to where we're trying to go. We often assume that people in political power are trustworthy, though I feel like that is cracked a lot, right? Like this is not the norm anymore. We're at a space where political power, people in political positions are not as trustworthy. I want to direct your attention back to the last time that we had eclipses in mutable signs. So mutable signs are Virgo, Pisces, Gemini, and Sagittarius. And the last time that we had eclipses in mutable signs were eclipses in Gemini and Sagittarius that began in 2018. Yeah, I think the first one would have been like July 2018, and the last one was July 2020. This was pretty much half of Donald Trump's presidency. And even before those eclipses in Gemini and Sagittarius began, we had Saturn in Sagittarius, which was from January 2017 until January 2020. So that was almost the entirety of Donald Trump's presidency. And if you were following me then, if you were following me in 2018, following me in 2019, and 2020, one of my big go-to phrases and themes that I use to make sense of how the astrology of that moment was reflected in ongoing shifts and changes. Remember, eclipses mark major cultural shifts. So, excuse me, one of the phrases I said often was that words mean things. And eventually everybody was saying this. What's that lady's name? Maddow, she was saying it. I mean, it was in news articles everywhere. This thing that words mean things, that you can't just take a word that has an associated meaning and just decide that it means something different, right? And there was also, at the time of these eclipses, which coincided with and overlapped with Saturn's transits through Sagittarius, this whole thing of fake news. Now, I'm going to share something that you probably don't agree with, but when you hear my rationale behind it, you probably will agree with me. We need to thank Donald Trump, right? We don't thank him for real, but he served an important role in terms of the major cultural shift around the topics associated with immutable signs, which are all about trust and discernment. He said something out loud that we needed to hear. Did he say it in a context that was helpful or constructive to the cause of people? No. Did he say it in a way that meant to serve the well-being or purposes for anybody other than himself? No. But what he said was true. Fake news. It was true. Americans are the most brainwashed population in the world, maybe only second to those in North Korea, and for different reasons, right? People in North Korea know they're closed off to the world. They know they're in bondage. They know their reality is fabricated. People in America think that they have access to accurate information. People in America, Americans in general, believe the news, believe politicians, believe doctors, believe scientists, believe teachers, right? Without any skepticism or reservation. And the skepticism often, if there is some, goes to the other extreme, right? You don't trust anybody for anything. Not that you understand the nuances of who to trust and when to trust them and what to trust them for. It's that nobody is trustworthy. And so you have to have this level of skepticism towards everyone, right? So I'm trying to get you to understand what mutable eclipses are about by talking about the last time that we had eclipses in mutable signs, which was 2018, 2019, 2020, that overlapped with the Saturn and Sagittarius transit. And that would have been the entirety of Donald Trump's presidency. And what Donald Trump did was plant seeds of doubt and distrust around who is telling the truth and who we should trust to give us accurate information about what is real. James is, I see a lot of comments here. It's Pertina is saying we are the quote free world. Yes, deep. It is. Mercurian Sun says, we think we're free. Absolutely. James says, I remember one thing you once said in one of your lives, that sometimes liars tell the truth and sometimes truth tellers share false info, and how important it is to sit with that nuance. Absolutely. There is something very childish about how we approach truth and information and facts as a people. And I think it's in part, I'm not even going to say it's human nature. I would say just a little bit of it is human nature. But I think the majority of it is indoctrination, which is that Americans are incredibly susceptible to propaganda because we have a very black and white perception of how to discern what's accurate and what's true or false. And also, thank you, Annoying Artist, but also there is this childlike desire to not have to think, to not have to consider. We want to believe. We want for things to be true. We don't want to have to think for ourselves. For you Annoying Artists, I will make this live available on YouTube if Instagram lets me download it and all of that stuff, okay? So there's this childlike way. When we're children, until we get to a certain age, we generally don't know better than to question. We take everything at face value. Everything is exactly what it appears to be. This is the purview of Mercury and Virgo and Gemini, to take things at face value. There's nothing deeper, and we just don't even have the experience or cognitive capacity to understand that something can appear to be one way, but actually be something else, or that what something appears to be is giving us information about its true nature, but that we need to dig deeper, right? Marisa says, believing everything or believing nothing requires zero effort. Yes, 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 yes. That is totally it. Believing everything or believing nothing requires zero effort. And these eclipses, and even Trump's, shouting fake news, like nuance, my friend, nuance. Is he a POS? Absolutely. Should he be banished from public anything? Should he be, exiled? Absolutely. However, we can take the meat and throw away, all that is useless, right? And the meat to take away is that news is fake. My man told no lies. Now, is all news fake? No. Is most mainstream news fake? Yes. We're seeing right now, those of you who understand that Palestinians are an oppressed people, who are oppressed by Israel, who are oppressed by the United States government and its entire imperial military apparatus, understand that Palestinians are akin to enslaved people who are rebelling, right? They are revolting and they're trying to get free, right? But if we rely on the news, we would think that somehow these people are so dangerous and so bad and so wrong, that how dare they, right? And this is what I mean about who should you trust to give you accurate information? Who do you trust? Why do you trust them? This is the big thing about these eclipses. Who do you trust to give you accurate information? And why do you trust them? Often, I've talked about how capitalism functions in this way that we assume that people who have been able to accumulate land, property, money, or capital, whatever form it comes in, know something that we don't. And we should listen to them. They have some insight. They have some understanding. They have some special knowledge that we lack. And it is knowledge that is keeping us from material security. It is keeping us from wealth. We think that lack of knowledge is keeping us from material security and safety and having enough or more than enough. But it's not knowledge that is keeping you from material security, right? For very few people, a degree from a university will give them some type of access to material security. But the truth is, for the people that a degree will give them access to material security, they probably already had it before, right? They probably already had it before. And they have family members who have it so that they can take their time to build material security. So the big takeaway from these eclipses, and this first eclipse on October 14th that's in Sidereal Virgo, is to really think about the ways you've been led to believe that lack of knowledge or insight is the thing that is keeping you from safety and security. And I want you to think about the nature of propaganda. The gift of all four mutable signs, which is Gemini, Sagittarius, Virgo, and Pisces, is discernment. We need to know with some measure of certainty what is real, what is true, what is accurate, right? But discernment helps us to take on, embody, and approach these things with nuance, understanding that there are people who are trustworthy for certain things at certain times, right? I talked a lot about this when Jupiter was in Pisces last year, okay? That there is no one who is trustworthy at all times for all things. And as a matter of fact, expecting someone to be trustworthy in that way, expecting for someone to always know what they're talking about, to always be the bearer of truth, often means that person feels pressured and will struggle to say if when they don't know or when they're wrong, right? Right? So this should bring up some things around COVID. This should bring up some things around the news. This should bring up things around colleges and universities, all institutions, libraries, right? We see that Jupiter in Pisces transit, which began in April of 2022 and ended in April of 2023, that particular transit kind of got into full force this idea of banning books, or this practice of banning books, closing libraries, removing libraries from school, because it's all about controlling people's access to ideas. Death as Praxis asked me what propaganda is. I think propaganda is the primary tool of indoctrination, right? I don't think this is anything different from how it's understood. But propaganda is something that obscures your capacity to see and know what something is. So for me, propaganda and prejudice go together, right? Because prejudice is also a tool of indoctrination. So prejudice literally means to prejudge. It means to form a judgment before you have encountered something. It means to decide who or what something is, or what you believe, or what something means before you actually have a chance to encounter it. Prejudice often means we don't take something at face value. We cannot possibly see what it is. And so propaganda is this thing that obscures our capacity to form our own judgments because we are told what it is before we have a chance to encounter it. Propaganda is the way that institutions of power, mainly governments and religions, which tend to always fold into each other, this is the way that they control the flow of information, establish narratives, and form public opinion. So propaganda also goes with cultural hegemony, right? Where we believe that we are forming an accurate conclusion. We believe that we are thinking critically, but we don't understand that the information we are given access to is actually leaving out a bunch of stuff that would actually allow us to think critically. Right? So thinking critically actually requires us to have access to a variety of different viewpoints and information so that we can discern which piece of information we should trust. This is the big thing about eclipses. One, about mutable signs. Two things. I want to talk about some historical precedent, and I want to talk about that in two different ways. You guys are welcome. So one of the ways I want to talk about historical precedent, and I didn't get to do as much research on this as I wanted to, but I've been interested in the parallels. Pause real quick, Dana. James says, that reminds me of the show you talked about in Advanced Study. I forgot the name of it, but it's about people who were told to only read certain books. Oh, this is the show Foundation on Apple Plus. And it was actually, they weren't allowed to read it all. All universities were closed. All libraries were banned on this particular planet, on the show Foundation. Curiousness was outlawed. Prophetic, shall we? So anyways, I want to talk about two historical precedents. So I didn't get to do as much research on this as I wanted to, and I'll probably do more as we move through these eclipses. But I've been really, really interested in the astrological kind of what was going on astrologically during specifically the 80s and 90s of the AIDS, HIV epidemic. And I was able to see that there were some eclipses in Virgo and some transits in Virgo and Pisces that correlated with some public health campaigns around safe sex, around how HIV/AIDS is transmitted and how to protect yourself. I've been talking about the parallels between HIV/AIDS and COVID since the beginning of the pandemic. And unfortunately, at the time, at the beginning, a lot of people were offended by that, and they were really hesitant or just outright against making those parallels. But I'm a student of history and astrology, so I don't really care about people's opinions. I see what I see, and I am who I am because I know what I know and I be right. And so now, over the past, I would say, year or 9 months, more and more people have been drawing the connections. And there was a series of posts that went around earlier this year from Twitter talking about where we are with COVID in relationship to where we were with HIV/AIDS at certain times. And we're at this moment. So let's talk about HIV/AIDS, which is misinformation and propaganda about the way that HIV/AIDS is transmitted and who it primarily affects, right? This is where we are with COVID. misinformation and propaganda about the way that SARS-CoV-2 is transmitted, and disinformation and propaganda around who is affected by HIV, or who is affected by SARS-CoV-2, the virus that causes COVID-19, right? So this is where we are. We don't have effective treatments. We're doing nothing to mitigate transmission. So I would say we're in the 80s still in terms of HIV/AIDS, parallel to where we are with COVID. We're still in the 80s. You know, the president is saying the word COVID, but he's lying and withholding information about the lens he's taking to protect himself from the virus, right? The entirety of the government apparatus has been involved in perpetuating the propaganda around COVID, to the point that people believe it's just like the cold or flu. People believe that there is no need to mask. People believe that there is a benefit in contracting the virus, even though we're going on our 4th year and no one has immunity and more people are getting disabled, and we still have at least 1,000 people in America dying each week from their acute infection of COVID. And we have no idea how many people are dying as a consequence of long COVID, as a consequence of strokes and heart attacks, embolisms, and various other illnesses that come as a consequence of being infected with SARS-CoV-2 and contracting COVID-19. One more thing about that is that there was, I can't remember his name right now, but anybody who's a student of history or knows a lot about the history of HIV/AIDS in America, there was a particular Surgeon General who was put in place sometime around like 87, 89, something like that. This Surgeon General was responsible for changing the conversation on HIV/AIDS and initiating multiple public health campaigns that were executed in partnership with nonprofit, community, and government organizations all over the country to inform people about the truth of how HIV/AIDS is contracted and what people can do to protect themselves. Unfortunately, we're still not even there in terms of how we are dealing with COVID. We don't even have a fail-proof test. Most of the rapid tests, if not all, that people use to test themselves for the virus that causes COVID-19, they don't work, or you have to test. They don't recognize it if it's asymptomatic, or they don't work unless you jump through all of these hoops to swab the entirety of your head cavity, right? So we're really far behind. That might be his name, Jenny Flower Mancy. Thank you. Macy. I was going to say Mancy. That's awful. I also wanted to say that the parallels with HIV/AIDS are also literal, in that there have been multiple reports since 2020 and even more over the past 6 months that are talking about how COVID-19 functions very similarly to AIDS, in that the whole goal of SARS-CoV-2 is to suppress your immune system in the same way that HIV does, causing people to develop acquired immune deficiency, which is AIDS. Both HIV and SARS-CoV-2 attack CD8 and CD4 T cells, which are really important in our capacity to remember viruses, our immune system's capacity to remember viruses, and our immune system's capacity to create specialized immune cells for different viruses. The realist CC said, I believe I had a brain aneurysm from long COVID-19. Man, that had to be really, really, really scary. And I just hate that that happened to you. And I hate that that's happening to people in general. It doesn't have to. It truly does not have to. It doesn't have to be like this. Sacho Chacho says, I work 2 jobs. One of my managers had a heart attack a few months back and he's only 40. He never masks. The administrator at my other job recently was hospitalized due to a pulmonary embolism. So many people I know that are younger are getting heart attacks, strokes, and embolisms. It's really terrifying, and no one thinks it's COVID related, but it is. So before I talk about the last of the Aries Libra eclipses, I want to say that the last time that we had kind of major transits through Pisces, Virgo. So Jupiter, Pisces, where the North Node will be, the last time that we've had significant transits through Pisces were literally just spring 2022 to spring 2023 with Jupiter in Pisces. And then the Mars retrograde in summer 2020 through winter 2020 was in Pisces. And you really need to understand that Pisces transits since 2020 have correlated to increasingly obscuring our capacity to discern whether or not we have COVID, whether or not COVID is being transmitted in the general population, and whether or not we should be protecting ourselves in some capacity. Sidereal Pisces transits since 2020, and then again peaking 2022, 2023 spring to spring, have been correlated with the end of the public health emergency for COVID. It has been correlated with the end of free access to vaccines. It has been correlated with the end of mass surveillance of virus transmission across the country, not just here, but also in Europe, the UK, and other places. So Pisces, you know, often is about having to deduce what is true via what is being omitted. With Pisces, things are not stated explicitly. I talk about the wound or the catalyst experience of Pisces being lying by omission, having information withheld. And so it's this way of, how can I know what's happening if all of the information I need to form a judgment is not being given to me? How can you know whether or not people are dying from COVID if you don't test? How can you know if COVID is still transmitting if you don't count, right? So we talk about propaganda as a primary tool of indoctrination that systems and institutions of power use to control the information that we have access to and to control the conclusions that we are able to draw based on the information that we have access to, right? Yes, Death is Praxis says knowing with as little information as possible. That's the whole goal of Jupiter. Jupiter is like, what is the meaning or information I can extrapolate from this little nugget that I have? Is there a pattern here, right? Jupiter is the pattern seeker. Is there a pattern here that I can observe that can imply something explicit, right? So going to Virgo, Virgo was transiting sidereal Virgo in fall 2016 through fall 2017, right? This again, first year of Donald Trump's presidency, he has Jupiter in Virgo. So this was his Jupiter return. And this is really when the fake news thing really took off, because now he was in a position of power to influence and to have what he was saying broadcasted more widely. So Virgo, if Pisces is all about lying by omission and withholding information and needing to connect the dots in order to figure out what is being withheld or what is the explicit truth or fact that can be deduced from a pattern of information, Virgo, sidereal Virgo, is about what is explicitly said. And Virgo is often about lying by commission. It's lying on purpose. So saying to you that only a certain population of people are negatively affected by COVID, or only gay people can contract AIDS, or only poor people are dying from AIDS, or only poor people or Hispanic people are getting infected with COVID and having negative outcomes, right? Lying explicitly is saying, look here, not there, right? So how do these two things play on each other over the next couple of years? The eclipses in Virgo and Pisces will end spring of 2025. And then they'll move into Aquarius and Leo, just as Saturn is leaving Aquarius and heading into Pisces. All right, let me catch up on these comments here. Y'all have shared so much. Under the Planet says, I speak up about masking and people around me get angry. It's scary to even exist at this point. Absolutely. Mercurian Sun says, literally airborne HIV. I know that that's alarming to people, but the number of studies, the number of, the amount of data that is constantly repeating how similarly SARS-CoV-2 behaves to HIV is alarming. They both give you an acute infection that conceals the fact that it's actually a chronic disease. Both SARS-CoV-2 and HIV hide in places in your body that the immune system cannot find, attacking your CD4 and CD8 cells so that you fall prey to opportunistic infections like fungal infections, respiratory diseases like RSV and pneumonia, and maybe even tuberculosis, right? It often can awake latent viruses in your body like Epstein-Barr virus, the virus that, mono. Both HIV and SARS-CoV-2 seek to suppress and impair your immune system and causes what is it called? Lymphopenia. Is that how you say it? Lymphopenia, which is a disorder in which your blood doesn't have enough white blood cells called lymphocytes. Both HIV and SARS-CoV-2, the virus that causes COVID-19, cause this. Don't turn away from the truth. Don't bury your head in the sand. Sit with the discomfort of recognizing that you've been lied to. Sit with it. Be with the feeling and the fact that everyone around you has been lied to. The people that are responsible for protecting you and solving problems and preventing disasters have been explicitly lying to you and intentionally withholding information from you. And it makes you incredibly uncomfortable. You don't want to hear it and you don't want to believe it's true. Just like when your spouse is cheating on you, or your best friend, is being accused of assaulting someone and you just don't want to believe it. You just can't believe it's true. Because what does it say about me that I've believed a lie? What does it say about who I am that I've, allowed myself to be lied to? Right? But this is an example of overestimating yourself, right? You have not been lied to because there's something about you. It has nothing to do with you. There's a reason. Think about it. Think critically. Use your mind. Why would the government, why would the CDC, why would the president lie to you? Why would medical doctors, why would epidemiologists and immunologists believe lies? Everyone believes lies. And it's much easier to believe a lie when everybody else around you believes it too, right? So go easy on yourself. But that's what these eclipses are about. In the 2023 Sidereal Astrology Guide, the fill in the blank for the eclipse on October 14th is, it's right here. It says eliminating mistrust. Now I'm gonna let y'all sit with that, okay? And then we got to talk about the Aries eclipses, and then we're gonna do some readings. I went and got blood drawn this week, and I was the only one in the lab in a mask, while the nurse unmasked told me that she's seeing so many young heart attacks, clots. Yep. People are sending their sick toddlers to my school I work at with colds, and whole time it's COVID. Nobody at my job masks but me. So this is a really great example of Virgo versus Pisces. If based on the information you have available to you, you have been driven to eliminate COVID as a possible cause of your illness, right? You got to fish around, right? So if you are being lied to by omission, they're saying COVID is gone. Anytime you get sick, it can't be COVID. This is textbook mutable sign. And we've been dealing with mutable transits, particularly in Pisces, since the beginning of COVID. One of the main transits at the start of the pandemic in 2020 was a Mars retrograde that was in Pisces and Aries, just like this little switcheroo with these eclipses that we're getting ready to do now. Okay? Sylvie says, this may be an off-the-wall question, but can astrology be done for something like a virus pandemic? Did anything about COVID-19 give itself away before research discovered it? I don't really know about that. All of the stuff I've discovered astrologically has been in retrospect because I'm a pattern seeker. So I'm able to associate real life events with patterns. Once I catch the pattern, then it's very obvious. Traditionally, plagues are associated with Mars and Jupiter, which there was a Mars-Jupiter conjunction in Sagittarius in March of 2020. And actually, the last time before there was a Mars-Saturn conjunction in Sagittarius in 2020, the last time that particular conjunction occurred was in 1984. So do with that information what you will. Yeah. Pensive paradox. Are the bed bugs a part of this somehow? Will we see similar deception around them? I don't know how you can be deceived around bed bugs. I think the thing with COVID is that you can't see it. Just like AIDS, you can't see it. So it's very easy to create propaganda and lie and withhold information. With bed bugs, you pull up that mattress and it's bugs in the mattress and you're getting bit everywhere. I do think the bed bugs are a part of this. Let's talk about the October 28th eclipse in Aries. That one is coinciding with an opposition between Mars and Jupiter. And all planets that, well, not all, but most of the planets, when they have these cycles, so they'll do a conjunction, then they'll do a square, then they'll do an opposition, then they'll do another square, and they'll conjoin again. So in May of 2022, Mars and Jupiter conjoined in Pisces. And that actually coincided with monkeypox, or whatever they're calling it now, the monkeypox virus that was spreading in the spring and summer of 2022. Then we did not get to the square of Mars and Jupiter until June of this year. And that really started this wave that has not stopped waving of COVID. And so since the conjunction of Mars and Jupiter in Sagittarius in 2020, you can see that every time Mars and Jupiter make a hard aspect, so that's going to be a conjunction, square, or opposition, there is something happening with COVID. So In my October 2023 post on Instagram, I said the themes of this month were trust and power. Everything that I've just been talking about is trust, right? Y'all asking some good questions. Hold on. Death is Praxis says, have you already gone over the role of artificial intelligence in these eclipses? I wrote about that in a thread I did last year on these eclipses. I'll re-up it on my Twitter so that people can see it. But I mean, I think that connection is visceral and like loud and obvious, right? Like, artificial intelligence is, particularly with images and videos and, well, all media, right? Images, videos, and sound and voices, right? You can make a video that looks like something is happening, make a image that looks like something is happening, or even create an audio file that makes it sound like someone is saying something. What's his name? Tom, what's the guy that played in shoot, what's the guy? Hold on. I'll be forgetting people's name now. Yes, Tom Hanks had to go and say, hey, there is an advertisement for dental insurance using my image, but it is not me, it is artificial intelligence. That's where we are right now, right? You can't take things at face value, right? You have to find that balance between what is exactly as it appears to be and what is not exactly as it appears to be. That's the question of these eclipses. She's So Free says Pisces is associated with sleep. Maybe there's a correlation to the bed bugs. That's not going to work for me because bed bugs is kind of a misnomer. They aren't just in your bed. They're in your carpet and in your walls and on your couch and in your clothes and in everywhere, right? Like, yes, they're in mattresses, but it's not like that. Bed bugs are everywhere. Bed bugs are on the train, right? Bed bugs are on public transit in Paris. They're everywhere. Anywhere there are people, there are bed bugs. Anywhere there are people in fabric, there are bed bugs. So I wouldn't make that association. I would really focus on kind of like pestilence and infestations and illness and pandemic that's associated with Mars and Jupiter. It's Pertina says, what do you think about all of this shared information on extraterrestrial, like the new documentary Encounters suddenly available to public? I think that is a distraction. I think that humans are incredibly narcissistic to think that somehow any extraterrestrial life, right, is only gonna talk to the government. Like, I feel like that was Death is Praxis that brought that up to me. Like, why is it that anytime there is an extraterrestrial, it's only the government who sees and knows about it? How come I'm not seeing extraterrestrials? How come they're not falling in my backyard? Why is that? I think it's ridiculous. If you want to know my real opinion, astrology aside, my real opinion is that viruses are actually extraterrestrials. I think that viruses are the alternative life form that we think aliens are. And the extraterrestrials, the aliens, the viruses, right? I mean, they're RNA, they're a life form, right? They're not bacteria. You can't just spray some bleach on them and they'll go away, right? You can only kill viruses. I mean, there are some antiviral substances, right? But you have to destroy the DNA. You have to, it's not like you just break the cell membrane and then it just dies, right? It's like, it's RNA. It's just like, right? Like the things that humans have. in our cells. And they can survive in a variety of circumstances. Bacteria require a host. Viruses can just be chilling, right? Jamie in Motion says, maybe deception around how the climate disaster is the perfect breeding ground for the bed bugs. Ooh, that's really interesting. I don't know if it's deception. I mean, at this point, barring like fringe people, everyone's accepted that climate change is real. They've just also decided that there's nothing you can do about it, so we won't because the problem's too big and it requires cooperation that they perceive us to be incapable of as a species, which I don't believe that, because there's no reason to survive if that's true. Yes, the Show Foundation has super interesting stuff about AI too. I'm the kind of person that, like, when I watch something, like the time that I watch it, like it's prophetic, it's symbolic and meaningful. And so I suggest everybody watch Foundation if you can. And there's so many kind of prophetic things that are happening in that show that are incredibly relevant to everything that's going on right now. What else I got? Right, take me to your leader, Mercurian Sun says, like, come on, man. That is like the biggest evidence of this government propaganda. Why would aliens and extraterrestrials respect power structures? Why would extraterrestrials who are coming to visit Earth respect the hierarchies of fascism? Why would they do that? That doesn't make any sense to me. James says, in the extraterrestrial conversations around Congress, it feels like it's a smokescreen. It's a shiny object to distract people from what's actually going on. Exactly. Zoephia says, there is so much debate I remember from my research in viruses that infect bacteria. Lots of people think viruses are not living because they cannot reproduce on their own or without a host. Speaking of Tom Hanks, it's wild how that got everyone to take COVID serious, and I'm wondering what it's going to take to get everyone to act like it doesn't exist now. Interesting. Okay, let's talk about these Aries eclipses. Before I talk about the Aries eclipses, though, I want to talk about my eclipse special. So I started offering an eclipse special probably back in like 2017, where when we get around eclipse season, I offer a special reading and divination that is focused on the eclipse story in your chart and how to understand it. The way to understand what eclipses are doing in your chart requires the knowledge of like past astrological transits that are associated with these eclipses, the house topics in your chart, the rulers of the houses, and what is the overall big picture that the eclipses are occurring in astrologically in the sky at the time. And so this is what I do for you in Eclipse Special. Normally, the Eclipse Special is like a 30 or 45-minute reading that focuses just on the sidereal birth chart. But this time, I give you the option to get a tarot reading or a sidereal astrology reading for your Eclipse Special reading. So you can do tarot or you can do sidereal astrology. It's a 30-minute reading at a reduced rate than what my normal 30-minute reading fee is. And for anybody who's got a reading with me, 30 minutes is a suggestion. I try to stick to it, but whatever amount of time we need to finish talking about what we're talking about, that's what we do, which is usually about 45 to 50 minutes. And then I also have 2 groups. These are so fun, where, again, if the price point for a one-on-one reading is not in your budget, you can join my 4-person Eclipse Special groups, which are going to be this Saturday coming up next week, which is October 14th, so the day of the actual Virgo eclipse, and then October 21st. So the 4-person Did for Lib Eclipse Special will be probably about 90 minutes. And they're at 11 a.m. Central Time on October 14th, 2023 and October 21st, 2023. Those are Saturdays. And you can book one-on-one. You can book the group readings at the link in my bio. Again, for the one-on-one eclipse special readings, you can choose from Tarot or Sidereal Astrology, and it's up to you. Elizabeth says the group readings are the best, highly recommended, always fantastic people in each group. Yes, I love group readings so much. To me, they are like a very numinous and mystical experience because you end up in a group randomly, but the group that you end up in, there's always people who have incredible commonalities with the placements in your birth chart, and you get to see the way that eclipses or whatever transit that we're talking about is impacting other people. You get to share and you get to meet people. It's just really, really great. People make friends from the 4-person groups. They make professional connections from the 4-person groups because you just really never know who you're going to end up with. It's just who signs up, and it's random. But there's always some commonality that's shared with people's charts in the group. And it's really beautiful testament to the way that Div for Lib works, to be able to see that you have this placement and the other person has this placement or configuration, and you really do have this shared experience in your upbringing and in your life, but also in real time as transits are triggering those configurations in your chart. So again, if you want to take me up on the eclipse special, one-on-one for Tarot or Sidereal Astrology, or 4-person groups, which are October 14th and 21st, you can check the link in my bio for that. Okay, let's talk about these Aries eclipses, and then we're going to do some community readings. We're going to do some tarot. Let me put my Cash App up here so that y'all can bless a sister from the knowledge. You're welcome, Sunscapes. I enjoy this so much. Clips, tips and donations. Okay, so as I said earlier, and in my October, the Astrology of October post that's pinned on my Instagram profile, I said that the 2 themes of October are trust and power. We just spent a very long time talking about Pratina, I know you're not trying to call me light skin. I don't know. I'm not my lightest yet, so I don't know. Maybe I am a little bit, but I'm not my lightest yet. Anyways, I go outside every day to exercise, so I don't know. Anyways, so we spent a long time talking about the trust portion of the October theme, which has to do with the new series of eclipses in Virgo and Pisces. The first eclipse in this series is October 14th. And it's in Sidereal Virgo. It will be visible on some portions of the West Coast, Nevada, Oregon, some parts of Texas, and New Mexico down through Central America. The rest of these eclipses in this series will occur in 2024. The last one is in 2025, right before Saturn enters Pisces and leaves Aquarius, okay? So next up, we've got Aries eclipses, which are all about power. This series of eclipses began with a new moon solar eclipse in Sidereal Aries, which was April 30th or 29th, something like that, 2023. Now, remember, if you're just tuning in at the beginning of this live, which I will say, don't worry guys, if you missed it. At the beginning of this, I read from the 2023 Sidereal Astrology Guide calendar glyph key that explains what each of the glyphs in the calendar mean, both the name of the symbol and the explanation. And I said that eclipses mark major cultural shifts. So what are the major cultural shifts associated with eclipses in Sidereal Aries and Libra that have been going on since the spring of 2022? Redistribution of power. Can you see it? We are spring of 2022, spring of 2023, we had unprecedented historic unionizing and labor organizing efforts with Amazon, with Starbucks, and now we are reaching the end of this series of eclipses, and the United Auto Workers are on strike. Healthcare workers with Kaiser Permanente are on strike. Food service industry in Nevada are threatening strike. There are 250,000 workers on strike right now. This is a redistribution and reorganization of power, okay? Cardinal signs, Sidereal Aries, Libra, Cancer, and Capricorn are all about power. This year, while we've been having a series of eclipses in Sidereal Aries and Libra, we've also had Jupiter in Aries, and we've also had a Venus retrograde, primarily in Cancer. Yes, thank you, Izzy. Waffle House workers organizing, Screen Actors Guild of America and Writers Guild of America organizing. Workers, I tweeted in December of 2022, I said workers win in 2023. And there have been an incredible amount of worker wins this year. And there's also been the evidence of a lot of propaganda, capitalist propaganda around work. Whereas Waffle House workers are demanding fair treatment and pay, there are also people, some of them are probably trolls or, you know, fake news, who are saying Waffle House workers don't deserve $25 an hour. And I just want for you, if you ever fix your mouth to say that a worker does not deserve to be paid what they're demanding, I want you to shut your mouth, and I want you to go and talk to the people that you work with and figure out whether or not you and the people you work with are getting paid what you feel like is fair. Don't hate on nobody else's hustle for fair treatment. Don't hate on nobody else's hustle to be paid what it is that they're worth. Work on your own self-worth issues that have you thinking that your power is rooted in making more money than someone else who you feel does not deserve to be paid a living wage, to be afforded the right to make enough for housing. Understand that we are all being subject to the same nonsense exploitation, and that real solidarity and the real work of reorganizing and redistributing power really has to do with understanding who you are in solidarity with. Who do you want to share power with? This phrase that I really started speaking about during the eclipses in Sidereal Taurus and Scorpio back in 2020 is still relevant now. Survival is meant to be a shared burden, not an individual obligation. And so if your rebuttals to anybody's efforts to get the caretaking that they deserve, to get the value returned to them that they are creating for capitalists, if your mind immediately goes to thinking of reasons why they don't deserve it, I want you to understand that this is a consequence of the neglect that you have experienced from day one. You have been neglected the proper caretaking you deserve. I posted this at the end of the Venus in Cancer part of the retrograde transit. And I said, you deserve caretaking that does not humiliate you or infantilize you or disempower you. You deserve caretaking that accommodates you, that empowers you and respects you. You deserve to be taken care of in a way that doesn't humiliate you or threaten to punish you. You deserve to have caretaking where someone doesn't lord their power over you, right? So if we're talking about power and these Aries Libra eclipses, this requires us to examine the ways we are misusing our power. In what ways do you lord over, humiliate, disempower, or infantilize people that you are responsible for? In what ways do you humiliate and lord over the power you have over your children? You take care of your children, right? You take care of your children. Do you have to humiliate them to remind them of the power dynamic there? Or is that humiliation a manifestation of your resentment of the fact that you are shouldered with the burden to take care of your children without help, and you are shamed for not doing it up to the standards that society has set for you? Understand that so much of the ways that we replicate these power dynamics that we've been subservient to are the very replications that are going to keep us being oppressed. The same way that folks in Palestine are reorganizing power, they are saying, I have the power to disrupt this thing. I have the power to change. And guess what? When you reorganize power, when you decide that enough is enough, no one's going to pat you on the back and say, good job, I'm so proud of you, I approve of what you're doing. No, they're going to shame you, and they're going to say, could you do it a little bit quieter? You know, we don't really like violence. Could you stop demanding to be treated fairly? Can you please stop yelling so loud about getting paid a fair wage? Can you please stop being so aggressive about the fact that I am stealing the value of the labor that you do? Can you please just be a little bit quieter? Can you just not, right? We are at the like fever pitch, what I would call a critical mass around this reorganization of power. And it doesn't mean that it's over when the eclipses end. And it doesn't mean that it's over when Jupiter leaves Aries next spring. It just means that the seed has been set. The conflicts between the characters have been established. The protagonist and antagonist have decided what their ground is, right? And so as we approach this last eclipse, which these are my favorite fill in the blanks that I have ever written. The one I wrote for the Virgo eclipse, which was eliminating mistrust. And then the fill in the blank that I wrote for the full moon lunar eclipse in Sidereal Aries that is on October 28th, exposing the consensus of power that controls, right? Let's talk real quick about Aries and Libra. Aries is Mars, it's fire, it's cardinal. Libra is Venus, it's air, it's cardinal. Cardinal signs are about control. Control is a necessary aspect of survival. I need to be able to control my body. I need to be able to control my environment. And I need to be able to get people to respond to me in the way that I want them to respond to me. I need to get people to respond to me in the way that, is pleasing to me and maybe not violent. I need to get people to like me, right? This is Libra. So Aries as Mars and fire is all about setting the pace, right? It's all about saying, if I got a car that goes 500 miles an hour, I know. But if I got a car that goes 500 miles an hour, what does it serve me to go 50 miles an hour just so somebody else can feel good about the pace? Everybody got to go their own pace, right? Sorry, my car goes 500 miles an hour and I got a place to be, so I'm going to put my foot down on that pedal and I'm going to get to where I have to go. Those of us who have a strong Venus signature in our chart, we are Venus dominant, we have Taurus or we have Libra, we really struggle with this idea that we can set the pace, that we can go where we want to go and leave people behind in the process. Those of us who have a strong Venus or Libra signature, we often feel like we need to convince people, or we need someone else to drive, or we need to get where we're going in a way that considers the fact that maybe my car doesn't go as fast as I want it to go, but that person has a really fast car. So what can I do to convince them to get a ride, right? So we need this balance. We need this balance of, I need to do and show what I'm capable of. I want to feel competent. I want to feel like I can do it. I need to feel in control. I need to be able to get up and go when there's danger. I need to be able to move about freely with undue burden, right? On the other side, we have Libra. And Libra is understanding that we are social creatures and we survive and thrive in community with each other. And that even though my car goes very fast, I need to consider that there are children walking across the street sometimes. And so if I'm going too fast, I can't stop in time to avoid hitting children. And so Libra is really about the rules and structures we establish in order to accommodate, or rather to take into consideration that everybody is at a different place. And if we want to live together, we need to take into consideration the other people who are a part of our community, a part of our family or society, right? So Libra, so if Aries is about recklessness and knowing our strength and power, if Aries is about that which we are left to do on our own for good or ill, that which we are learned to feel capable of in absence of someone else doing it for us. If Aries is about knowing our own strength and power, Libra is about not being able to go and move freely. It's about the threat of punishment. It is about how we comply with the rules to avoid punishment. It is how we learn to be strategic so that we can exercise control in ways that avoids the punishment that is being threatened to us. Within this whole theme is the idea of being ungovernable. Ungovernable means you can't count on me to follow your rules. You can't count on me to consider the expectations you've established for me, right? Understand that systems are enforced, but systems are also participated in. We uphold systems not only by policing other people to conform to the rules or seeing ourselves as proxy to the police or government and becoming, you know, the enforcer of said rules. We also participate in the upholding of systems by being rule followers ourselves. And so when we see something like what's happening in Palestine, in the Gaza Strip happening, these people have become ungovernable. They said, you cannot count on us to comply with our own oppression. You can't count on us to follow rules that are meant to kill us and to wipe us off the face of the earth. Yet here we have these rebuttals that are saying, ooh, could you resist just a little differently? Could you resist just, I don't know, the way you're resisting is making me uncomfortable. You shouldn't have done that. Now Israel's going to get you. And there's this fawning to power that occurs. And fawning to power is really meant to distract power from our own shortcomings. So we are able to identify with power and say, hey, how dare those Palestinian people throw rockets? How come they just couldn't sit down and have a civilized meeting? I mean, well, it's like if you live in an open air prison where the entirety of the homes and property that your family built have been taken over by settlers, like what do you expect them to do? And the way that people are responding to this says everything about how they comply with their own oppression and the fear they have of retaliation in their own lives from people who have power over them, right? There's a lot of comments here. Let's see what I missed. Pensive Paradox says, can you be civil? In quotations, can you politely ask for what you need without inconveniencing me? Booyah. And I want you to see the Libra Aries. The Libra Aries axis as showing us the nature of rupture and repair in relationship. It's showing us the nature of belonging and conflict navigation, right? As a society, we suck at conflict, but it's because, you know, we have the cultural memory of 2 world wars plus Vietnam. And so particularly the silent generation and the boomers, they have this memory of 2 world wars in their lifetime, and it's traumatizing. And it's this way that they try to contain conflict that is only exercised in a certain way on certain terms as a trauma response to the world wars. But there's also just the rigidity of power structures around race and gender, capitalism, racism, and patriarchy that are too rigid to move through conflict without violence, right? People don't want to give power. So rupture and repair really looks like we're actually two different people, and we're different groups of people who are constantly adjusting and adapting and conforming in order to maintain relationship with each other. But inevitable ruptures come where you want me to adapt and conform so much that this is actually harmful to me. This is actually something that might cause my death. This is something that might, be incredibly physically dangerous for me to do, right? And so I can't adapt to you anymore. I got to stop here, and you've got to adapt to me now, right? But what we often do in those moments, instead of saying, okay, it's my turn to accommodate and adapt to you, what we actually end up saying is just go back to Africa. If you would just comply, I would adapt to you, which makes no total sense at all. Sacho Chacho says, my job is currently trying to successfully unionize, but it's losing momentum. Corporate's actions and scare tactics are starting to weigh on my coworkers. I hate it so much. Let's see what happens when the sun goes into Libra on the 17th. Let's see here. Okay, so we've had ongoing eclipses in Aries and Libra since the spring of 2022. And so we've had an opportunity to get acquainted with how this astrology is manifesting for us individually and collectively. We can think about, where are we navigating ruptures that require repair? Where are we setting the pace in our own lives in places where we might in the past have been overly conforming or accommodating to other people? Where are we getting the courage to set the pace and say, no, you got to catch up with me? But also, where are we being challenged to consider other people with the threat of punishment? Where are we learning to navigate conflict and repair ruptures in ways that require new skills, or that require us to be a little bit more accommodating or adapting than we've been in the past? Where are we staying when in the past we would have left? And where are we leaving when in the past we would have stayed? Those are big questions for the eclipses. And now it's time to do some Div for Lib readings. Tips and donations are not required, but I strongly encourage you to tip or donate to me as an exchange for my labor here today. And for those who I choose a reading for, I will hope that you donate. I've been considering doing this, and I am going to do it. So normally when I do tarot readings on here, they're cold readings, meaning I just pick someone randomly from the people who are watching, and there's no question. I just say what the cards have to say. But if you want to ask a specific question, you can send me $25 to either my Cash App or my PayPal. And I'll have my email up so I can see if you Cash at me. Now, don't just go sending me money, because I'm not going to be able to get to everybody. When I call your name and you decide you want to ask me a question, then you send me a Cash App or you send me a PayPal for $25. Otherwise, you can donate what you want. For people who I choose randomly, who just do a cold reading and don't get to ask a question. There's a question in this question. Oh, it's a bunch of questions in this question box. Oh, questions from stories. What the heck? Oh, that's cute. Okay, so if you would like to be the recipient of a reading, you can let me know by commenting here. And sometimes this, and if you would like to ask a question, then you can let me know. Okay, I see you, Elizabeth. Elizabeth wants to know about money. So let's do that real quick, just so y'all can see what it's like when you actually ask a question. And then I will come back and choose another person. It's 7:36. I am going to go until 8:05. So let's see how many folks we can get in that time. So let's see what these cards have to say about money situation for Elizabeth. Oh, I have not done tarot readings in so long. I'm so excited. Oh, I'm so excited. And I just can't hide it. All right. Okay. What's up, Pooh? Yeah, you need something from me?
Yeah, I don't feel good.
Do you need to get a treatment?
No.
Do you need a painkiller? Okay, I'm going to come check on you in a minute, okay? I'm going to come check on you in a minute. You want to lay in my bed?
No.
When did you take your inhaler last?
I don't know.
Okay, hold on, y'all. I'm going to be right back. Hold on. Okay, y'all, I got to be a mom for a minute. I'll be back. Okay, y'all, I have to go. My kid is having a little bit of asthma, so I need to go be a parent. I know I owe you, Elizabeth. I'll have to get back to you, but I have to go be a parent, so I gotta go. I will talk to y'all later. Thanks for tuning in. I will save this live and try to put it up on YouTube. All right, see y'all.